We're moving to enjoyable part. I really want to thank the three general managers who have agreed to come and give us an update on where we stand on the state water intertie issue. This is a report that they're going to give, tell us what the status is. After they have finished, all four have finished, then we'll open it for comment that you can address the board. And then we can go from there. So we certainly thank you, Susan Mulligan from Calleguas, Kevin Brown from the City of Ventura, and Mauricio. Yeah, Mauricio.
Guardado.
Thank you, United Conservation, and Steve. And on my list, Susan is first.
I think we switched it to Kevin.
Oh, you did?
We got to Kevin first, yeah.
All right. Whatever you folks want to do, thank you. We just appreciate you being here.
Thank you for that.
Yeah. I guess I'm like the Who opening up for Jimi Hendrix.
Mike.
Mike's on.
Testing.
Yeah.
Hello?
Yeah.
Is this better? I can talk loud too. I've been told I'm not a quiet individual. So thanks for having us here. I appreciate being able to address the Casitas board and the citizens of the local area and those users of Casitas water and any of my loyal customers. Great to have you guys here. I want to emphasize I've been in the job now for just about 11 months. And when I first got briefed on this job, the State Water Interconnection, it was briefed as a joint project to me when I took it over between Casitas, Ventura, United, and Calleguas, and has been a joint project since before I ever got here. And so just to dispel some of the rumors that have been out there that there wasn't a lot of cooperation, we've been working together on this thing since the day I got here, I can tell you that right now. And I'm sure more of that will come up from the other general managers. But this is something, we may not agree on all things, but we do agree that this is as far as Ventura water perspective and from a regional perspective, it's a necessary project that has a high priority with all of us. So without further ado, if we're going to go to my first slide, we can. Do you have that, or you got that? Yeah. Oh, there we go. And so currently we're in the EIR process to work out the, not to be pre-decisional, so there's a lot of things I want to be careful when I say here because of the EIR process, I do not want to be pre-decisional in anything I'm coming out with today, but this is the proposed route for the pipeline running from Springville down in Camarillo. As you can see down in the, I don't have a pointer, but down in the lower right-hand corner, is there a pointer?
Down the right there.
Right. It doesn't?
There it is. Yeah, I saw it right that.
I get on the wall. So if you look down the wall,
Yeah.
I don't put it in Pete's eyes. If you look down this side.
Yeah.
There we go. Thanks, Russ. So down there, it comes from Springville, around the Springville Reservoir, runs up through the ag land, coming up across the Santa Clara River into the Santa Clara area, where we will put a blending station in. This is to get treated water from Met via Calleguas. And we'll put a blending station in because we're going to blend it with our groundwater. One is to greatly improve water quality, especially on that side of town, which is extremely poor. But also make sure we get the chemistry right so we don't end up with any issues of any leaching from our current pipes. So those are very critical items for us. And so that's kind of the nutshell of the project. Do I have this one or?
You do it, I can do it.
I'm trying. Okay. So alignment studies completed. Current work is SEQA document. Public review period is coming up here in November, December. Future work, we're already working on preliminary agency agreements, the actual design, size of pipe, how much pipe we need, the right-of-way acquisitions. We're already surveying properties to make sure that our alignment works as we go through it. One key thing with this pipeline that's unique, Ventura is the lead designer on this one. We're taking the lead on the engineering for this project. And they come up with a great solution working together with the other agencies, and the fact that this pipeline does not require pumps. It can work either way, in either direction, based on topography and pressure differential. So it's something near and dear to me. My Navy background, we run a lot of systems that way, and it's great to see something like this happening within a very large pipeline in a 7-mile long pipeline. It's pretty incredible that's going to happen. And the next slide, please. I won't delay people. This is the general timeline that we're working with now. Although we're looking at options to maybe speed it up a little bit if we can. But currently, this is the current production schedule. As you see, there's a lot of items to happen in parallel in 2019-2020 timeline, and all of which are the design isn't too complicated. It's a pipeline. That's being done by Ventura's Public Works Department, and so they handle all of our engineering and execution. The right-of-way acquisition, that could get tricky at times, as we all know, as you try to put a pipeline through other people's property, but that's going to be working down that pathline. Permitting is also a key item as we come across. Bid and award process is pretty straightforward, and the construction is very straightforward. Next slide, please. And now the proposed infrastructure improvements to Ventura water. So one thing we don't do, Ventura is made up of 12 different pressure zones, and I don't really have much ability to move water from east side to west side to east side in Ventura. And that's the problem. We do draw water from different basins and from Lake Casitas and from and trying to get the state water. So in order to try to move water across the city, which I do not have the ability to do now, we're working the engineering out to put in a little bit of new pipe, not a whole lot, and repurpose some of the existing piping that will enable us to move water from east to west, west to east. And so that piping is the infrastructure improvement process, which is the east-west pipeline we're calling it, but it's really only a little bit of new pipe and repurposing some existing pipe to help enable us to move water across the city. What this would also do, would enable us to supply water on the west side of town back to Casitas if necessary to receive the state water contract amounts in that bill. And up in that corner is that timeline for this project, which is simultaneous, I might add. If you look at the timelines, they're kind of lining up together, so that way when I have the state water interconnect, I'll be able to also, by the time I connect, blend water in, I'll be able to move water east to west across the city. And so that's what we're striving for right now. And both these projects are working very well, and really are in the design phases and moving forward from that point on. And I think that's it for my slides at this point.
I think so.
Okay.
Thank you.
And I will turn it over to
Who's next?
Mauricio.
Oh, very
Me
good.
Susan.
Okay.
Those are you.
Well, Steve, can you hear me? Okay. So Kevin covered the connection. Calleguas has a reservoir in the Spanish Hills area. You can see the concrete square there. And we have a hydroelectric generator station that is the yellow box. And because we have two different pressure zones right in the same place, we can feed Ventura from the higher pressure side, and we can receive water from Ventura on the lower pressure side.
Actually, Susan, let's go previous.
Previous, okay.
Which one is previous? Top one. Second one.
We can just leave the other slide up and I
Let's
can
just
go
leave
through
that one
my
up.
talking
Let's just
points.
go through that.
So, why is Calleguas interested in this project? We're actually going to be building about half of the pipeline and subsidizing, well, we're still working on agreements and figuring out who pays what, but we'll be paying some portion of it. The main purpose of this pipeline is to move the state water allocations that are owned by the city, Casitas, and United through the metropolitan system, the Calleguas system, over to them. But Calleguas has an interest in this as well. We receive our water through one single tunnel in the Santa Susana Pass, by the train tunnels in East Simi Valley. And if we have a failure and we lose that supply, or if we lose something further upstream, we are very short of water. 3/4 of the water in our area, and we serve a population of about 660,000 people, 3/4 of the water is imported. So if we lose that supply, it's a real problem. We have some local supplies, but this connection allows us to get water back from the city of Ventura if we're cut off from our imported supply. So that's our interest in the project. Our only use of this pipe would be during an emergency situation like that. So let's talk a little bit, just some background on wheeling and what that agreement is upstream. I'm not sure if everyone understands how that works. Casitas, United, and Ventura have a right to state project water. That's an incredibly valuable thing. Many people around the state would kill for that kind of thing these days. But they don't, other than United, Ventura and Casitas don't have a way to access that water. And they can access it by using other people's water systems to deliver the water when there's extra capacity. There's a law in the state of California, and it's called wheeling. And wheeling is really just letting somebody else use your pipes to the extent you're not using them. And state law says that a water agency has to wheel water if they have extra space, if the water that goes through it isn't going to cause a water quality problem, and if they're compensated fairly for it. And Metropolitan and Calleguas are actually obliged by law, if we have extra space in our pipes, and we do pretty much all year round have some extra space in our pipes. People have conserved a lot lately, and we've got extra room in the pipes. And there's always extra room in the winter because pipes are sized for summer demands. So we're obliged to enter into agreements if these folks say they want to deliver their state project water through our systems, they can. The water would come down through Castaic Lake. The end of the state water system is Castaic Lake. And Metropolitan owns pipes that run south from Castaic Lake and go to a Jensen treatment plant in the North San Fernando Valley, kind of where the 5 and the 8 and the 118 all come together. The water would be treated there. It would come across the valley, come through Calleguas' water system, through that tunnel in Simi Valley. It would come through Simi Valley, Moore Park, Somas, Camarillo, and then it would come into this interconnection. But it would be the water that's owned by these entities under their state project rights. So just want to clear up, you're not going to be customers of Calleguas. You are really just renting space from Calleguas in this operation. One other thing that some people have asked is, could we do higher flows? Could we do more? And under this interconnection, Casitas and Ventura can get their entire state project allocations. If they chose to, say, go buy water on the market up in the middle of California and wanted to do that, it might be necessary to have a larger system. If Casitas were willing to allow Calleguas to store water in their lake, and we needed a higher capacity to get it out in an emergency situation, this project wouldn't do it. Ventura doesn't have the capacity to do it. So we are, and we've been coordinating with Steve on this, Calleguas is looking at what it would cost to build a dedicated pipe from Casitas' system in West Ventura all the way to Somas, which is where we would be able to take delivery of high flows of water. This is going to be an incredibly expensive project, and it will be a few years before Calleguas would even know if this is something that's worth pursuing for us. We need to find other sources of emergency supply, and we're doing a water supply alternative study that's looking at 88 different options for places we can store water, places we can get water for our emergency situation. So I know some have talked about a more ambitious project than this. It's being studied, but it'll be a few years before we know whether that's something that makes sense for us. And Casitas will need to decide if it makes sense for them as well. But I think this is a modest first start. I think it's a first start that gets them their allocation, and I think it's good for all of the parties to this agreement. Can I leave anything out, Steve?
I think it's a good hit right there.
Thank you, Susan. Very good.
Thank you, Mauricio, Guardado, United Water Conservation District, and thank you again for the opportunity, members of the board and the public. Good afternoon. As far as state project water, as Susan mentioned, we're one of the parties to the state water contract. Our primary mode of operation receiving that state water is through the backbone system of the state water project itself into our Lake Piru, and from there we store it and convey it that way. This particular project we're interested in because you can see the alignment of the pipeline goes right through very near the vicinity of our facilities, and in particular our spreading grounds. I don't have a pointer, but just offset of the pipeline. Yeah, to the upper zone, to the northeast area. We have throughout that vicinity we have Well, all in all, about 700 acres of recharge basin capacity. And we know when we get water there, really good things happen. So a standard for percolation rate in other type of recharge basins around California would, if you got 2 to 3 feet per day, that would be really good. We get anywhere from 12 to 14 feet per day of a percolation rate. So when water's available there, if we need it, that would be a really good place to put it for United Water and for the regional benefit across the Oxnard Plain. In addition to that, and Russ, since you did such a great job, I mean, not that you're Vanna White or anything, but now to the kind of southwest there, where El Rio site is. Right, so the yellow dots all along that pipeline represent some turnouts that United proposed as part of this project, where we would then construct additional infrastructure to, say, our El Rio site. At the El Rio site, we have additional groundwater recharge basins, but we also have a very large well field and pumping capacity of about 32 million gallons per day. So often we may be experiencing some water quality issues out of those wells. This would be a really good source, again, if the water was available and we had contracted that water, to be able to blend and, again, recharge those basins so that water quality can improve and that wholesale water we send to our customers would be that much more improved. I think that covers it as far as the interest for United in this particular collaboration of a project that would be able to wield excess state water. Thank you.
Thank you, Mauricio.
Well, I think we're hearing today that I think we all are sitting here thinking we've got a very good project for regional regions that need to be applied and not put aside because of rainfall as we did in the 1990s and moving forward. And I think you're seeing some good efforts and some good decisions that are being made, but we do have some challenges that are before us that we're going to have to work through, and I think we can. And I'm speaking as though I'm going to be here forever, right? Okay, just pretend that for the moment, Russ.
Okay.
But I think it's very important that this area begin to look at its next step for sustainable water supplies. Questions of climate change. I've heard a lot of questions about safe yield calculations. All those things that we can look at. But the question comes down to when it doesn't rain for a long time, where do we go to? And that's where we're at today. And beginning for the emergency readiness, and whether it's the drought for us or it's the earthquake scenarios that could happen to the Calleguas area. Can we work together to build something that will work in the future to serve the entire region, the entire Ventura County, and be beneficial? We do have to be careful, though, and there are some decisions that we are going to have to make, some financial decisions as we go forward. I've heard, that it should be affordable, and as we look at, populations that the cost would spread to, it does become more affordable than, say, one entity. Let's just take Ojai going alone, or Oakview going alone on a project like we're talking about. The more benefit we see throughout the entire county, the more that we can spread that financial burden and get this to be a complete project. A couple of things on decisions of state water. As we're talking about this particular project right here, I think we're really keeping in mind that this is more of an in lieu type project, and that water would enter in from the state water project and go into the city of Ventura, and city of Ventura not take water out of Lake Casitas, and we'd work out the arrangements on how that's done. And I think that was important. That I think Susan had mentioned that to us in a meeting, and the light bulbs went off, is that the water that is coming in is Casitas's or City of Ventura's or United's water. It's not Calleguas' water, and in that way we can wheel, and that way we don't become part of Metropolitan or utilizing part of Metropolitan's allocation to the state water project. So really what we're really talking about in this particular time is probably truly more of an opportunity for an in lieu delivery. And one of the aspects of this particular pipeline that came up during the design phase and the operations phase was, when you create a pipeline, a water pipeline, you must consider the age of the water that you have in that pipeline. If you let that water sit, it will go stagnant, you'll lose the disinfection, you'll want to flush it out and get rid of it. And that's a very expensive amount of water to flush when you're talking about a 7-mile pipeline that is anywhere between 30 and 36 inch in diameter. So one of the aspects was a minimum flow that was desired, or that was proposed. And it really comes very close to what probably the city of Ventura and Casitas would take commonly in an average year of water demand. So it really establishes a good baseline just to keep that line fresh and bring that water into the eastern part of the city of Ventura and maybe even further. So there's some things that we do have to observe and be careful of. And when we talk about the larger pipeline between Calleguas and Casitas, that's another aspect that if you get into large diameter pipelines, you need to really consider the water quality aspect of that in addition to the flow aspect. So challenges that are there, and that's design challenges, and they can be overcome. The direct wheeling or direct delivery part of it is probably a little bit more challenging in that we're not looking at large pipelines to bring water across. It is something that we do need to keep working on, keep looking at, and perhaps engaging even more City of Ventura with its water supplies, with the idea of moving water more easily. I think there's an opportunity there to everybody benefit by the water moving more easily through the City of Ventura, and it may be something that we pursue even further in the future. Task ahead on this are really each agency is contributing very well, and I hate for this to be my end, because I have really enjoyed working with these three individuals as general managers and coming to good conclusions and good thoughts when we do meet and we do talk about these projects. So we do have a lot of decisions that need to be made by each agency, and their varying participation, their scope of what they see as the project, and coming to some participation agreements, and we plan to be striking some ideas out in the next couple of months on exactly that. So that's one of the things that is coming down the line. The other one is operational commitments. End of next week, we're going to be meeting with Metropolitan Water District to talk about wheeling and what it's going to look like. They've not been entertained with that idea yet, but we're looking forward to a very good discussion with Metropolitan Water District and figuring out what they're going to charge us. Perhaps we'll find out very soon. But to get us on the radar with Metropolitan Water District and begin to get those operational commitments that we're going to be needing to move water through there, or we'll be back to the 1990s plan of trying to take water all the way from Castaic Junction and running down the Highway 126 and building a water treatment plant and a lot of those kinds of things. And that's another very expensive project. And I think the other thing that Casitas Municipal Water District will begin to pursue more is the financial commitment aspect of it. If we know what projects we're really truly looking at, develop up that financial plan, go to the public for perhaps bonds, go for grants, and also be concerned or consider the purchase of state water and the trends that we're going to be looking at with things like contract extension, Cal Water Fix, other things that are coming down the state water pipeline that are going to be very challenging and interesting to work with. So I think we've got, like I said before, probably the best opportunity with all four of these agencies to really do something good for Ventura County. Now's the time to move forward on it. It is going to take time to put this together. I was very happy to finally see Kevin's schedule there on that particular project. We've been dealing with that schedule for a long time, but now that the public sees it, you know what we're really looking at as far as the timeline, the challenges that are ahead, and I think now is the time to act and consider the State Water Project interconnection and our involvement in it. So I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Thanks, Steve. Thank you very much to all four. It's very obvious this is not just digging a trench, dropping a pipe in, and turning the faucet on. It's much more complicated than that, and certainly time-consuming, and we will continue working on it. I really do think that everybody that's been involved in it has the same goal in mind, and that's to help alleviate the issue with reliable water. And Kevin and those of us that live in Ventura, better quality water on the east side.
For sure.
I'm sorry, but yeah, I get partial.
I already said it.
Yeah, I know, that's why yeah, but it is all involved and it's all part of that. And I do thank you for coming and sharing and the time and the commitment to do that. And we will go forward. At this point, I guess I can open for comment if you want to address the board, and then we'll go from there. One thing I want to, we are going to put a 3-minute limit on it, and when you're at 30 seconds to go, I'm going to wave my hand, okay? Okay, Chris, you're on.
For Ventura River Water District, I really appreciated this presentation. I just had a question on status of stage 3, which would be a pump station able to pump the water up into the valley. What's the status of that?
Steve, can you answer that? No, that was stage 3. Oh, to come bring water up this way.
Correct.
Status of that is that it hasn't been planned yet. That's one of the next steps that they addressed is going to have to be reviewed, planned, and taken all the way through.
Yeah, and property negotiated for, so
Yeah.
there's a little bit of work, but I think we can do that in probably a year and a half time.
Okay. Did I see another?
I'll throw one out there.
Yes.
Bill Warwick, City of Ojai. A few questions to help my continuing education. Thank you for being here. Number one, is the design criteria the same for managing the lake on a safe yield analysis management plan versus a minimum reserve management plan? And in other words, will this design criteria compatible with either approach to managing the lake? And number two, I believe it's Article 21 water is when there's really a lot of, and is Article 21 water being delivered with that? Once wheeling arrangements are decided upon, does that apply both to taking entitled water as well as Article 21 water?
Susan, did you want to answer any of that?
Yes, I think we should make the wheeling agreement flexible for any water that these entities want to purchase and bring in.
And
Steve, do we
the
wanna-
first question?
Yeah, I'm trying to understand the first question. Bill.
Yeah, I am too.
Okay. All right, never mind then.
We'll get him when he's
Bill,
done.
maybe
Just-
we can talk about it later, but yeah, trying to understand what you're getting at with safe yield and state water
Well,
project.
my understanding is that there's the management protocols for a minimum reserve approach to managing the lake would be different from the current safe yield analysis. And whether basically the backup water from would be the backup water would, as available would be this design criteria would be the same under either management plan, if there are differences.
Yeah, I think it would be the same, because I mentioned the opportunity that we really have, that if we need to keep that line flushed at 3,500 acre feet a year between the city of Ventura and Casitas, that's usually about what we might get from state water if we're lucky
Okay.
each year. So I would say that what you would do is come to terms where that would be a minimum flow, and that would be a baseline, and then you'd operate your lake otherwise, but you'd be a baseline of 3,500 acre feet of state water coming in would be, and that solves your water quality problem.
All right, thank you.
The opportunities.
That figure of 3,500 acre feet is, we have an entitlement of 5,000 acre feet for Casitas. However, that's if the allocation is 100%, and that's only happened a couple of times. And at this point, what is it, Susan? How are they going to be 35%?
It's currently 35%. We think with water fix, it'll be about 70% on average, but it could be from 0 to 100.
Okay. All right, just trying to clear that up a little bit.
Also clear up the 0 to 100. And I'd like to make this perfectly clear that everybody in the state depends upon either snowpack or rainfall. And we just went through a period of going from 0% availability in 2015 to Article 21 water last year when the El Nino or the storms hit Oroville. You know, we were all dependent upon that statewide.
Yeah, okay. We can't invent new water. Okay, did I see another? Yes.
Jim, I just have one. Do I need to go over there? I can just.
Well, depends on how long your question is.
It's short. I just wanted to clarify what I heard from the United Water District, that they have a ton of storage capacity. Am I correct? Tremendous amount is what I just heard. And so when we look at Lake Casitas and its storage capacity, and then you have to ask yourself, what's the better place to store the water? Underground, where there's less evaporation, but there's still water movement, or above ground. So I was sitting over here thinking, what is, and have you guys thought that through, what is the better place to store this water? Is it actually taking it all the way up to the lake, or is it better off in the United? And are all of these capabilities of storage equal? You know, that would be my question.
If I could answer, if I were in charge, I would store it in a lake that I control. There are many, many pumpers on the Oxnard Plain, and we're in the middle of a groundwater sustainability plan process, and Casitas has full control of their lake, so I would recommend storing it there.
Thank you for your comment. Is there another?
You take a comment from the board?
I'm ready for the board. Okay. Bruce?
I had a question for Susan about the timeline.
Would you address the board, please?
Oh, I'm sorry, okay.
And
I had a question for Susan about the timeline for them to make a decision on their emergency backup supply. I had heard rumors that they were within maybe 2 or 3 months of making that decision, and now she seemed to indicate it might be more like a couple years if they're studying that pipeline going from Casitas all the way directly to Calleguas. So I wonder what the schedule is for that decision.
I understand your confusion. We will be done evaluating the Casitas dedicated pipeline, and we'll know the cost of that part of it. Excuse me. That option within probably a month, but we have a whole bunch of other options to study. We wanted to study that early to get a feel for it because of all the discussion here, but we have to compare it to other options. So we'll know what that is, but we can't compare it and make a decision for a couple more years. Yeah.
Thank you. Okay. I did this backwards, so.
Okay.
Ready for the board.
Susan, you're going to have to stand up.
Just get my exercise.
Comments from the board.
Could you elaborate on the difficulties of moving water from the west to the east should you have an emergency? And what's the best way for us to do that? Because that's really the fundamental underlying principle for this regional effort of all 4 agencies working in concert.
I think you've hit at one of the big constraint and challenge that we have. Ventura, during the outage of imported supply, can get water to Calleguas, but they would need to use their groundwater basin. They might use other supplies that they have to get that water to us. There's not a clear and direct connection between Calleguas and Casitas if we go through Ventura's system. We would just have to have an arrangement where we pre-deliver a certain amount of water to Ventura and they would deliver it back. If we wanted to enter into an agreement with Casitas and really move water and a significant amount of water, we've got to have a dedicated pipe. And we might not need a pump station to move it in. You can move water into storage over many years, but we'd need a dedicated pipe to get it.
So a 36-inch pipe hasn't got the capacity that we need, right?
The city of Ventura doesn't have the capacity. That's the challenge. It's moving through their system.
Okay.
Their system is designed to serve neighborhoods. It's not designed to serve water between Casitas and Calleguas.
Got it.
That's the bottleneck.
Well, we have some work to do.
Yes. Unfortunately, it all takes money.
Thank you, Susan.
You look like you wanted to say something. No, I was just looking at you. You look like
No,
you
I
wanted
mean,
to say something.
that was, no, I mean, No, I mean, yeah, the system's been with 12 different pressure zones and with water tanks on the hill, so the problem is moving water. I can't move water right now east to west, so what our improvements will do will enable us to move water east to west, and west to east also. But we've built the hydraulic models for the area, and unfortunately, trying to move more water than we can possibly move east to west to east basically damages our system. We can't do it right now with the current system. So we are undertaking new master plans for water and wastewater in the future, and we'll see what we can do. But really, what Susan's saying is perfectly. You need to move large quantities of water. If she gets cut off from Santa Susana Pass, she needs large quantities of water to move fast. You can't do that through a municipal water system designed for neighborhoods.
Okay.
But what you can do is Ventura can make use of Casitas' state project allocation.
Exactly.
And you don't need any additional pipe beyond this for your water allocation to be able to be used in your service area.
Sure, got that. Thank you.
Dr. Kaiser, you were.
Thank you. First of all, once again, thank you to Susan, Kevin, and Mauricio for being here out of your busy schedule. Really appreciate that. I understand where you're coming from, Susan, in regards to making sure you have a reliable source of water in the sense of whether or not something gives in the way of our earth below us. I mean, all you have to do is look every other week, perhaps, in the ring of fire that is in the Pacific. You can see where there's earthquakes happening on sadly a fairly regular basis right now. Susan, you mentioned that it's going to be extremely expensive. And I think just to give us some idea of a range of what you see as being the expense of the total project, engineering as well as construction.
For the larger
Yes.
pipeline?
Yes.
Well, this
the
pipe,
totality of the entire project, because I think that's what the public needs to hear, that kind of information too.
so this pipe is $45 million.
Okay.
Design, construction, right-of-way acquisition, everything, $45 million project. That other pipeline is 3 to 4 times as long and about the same size. So you can do the math, you're looking at a $200 million project. Definitely takes a lot of thinking before we move into that.
I put this up for you, Susan, too. I forgot to go to this, but this also gives you the perspective of the mileage or the distances that we're talking about between those stars. And the first project that we're talking about right now is from the star on the right up to the one in the middle. That's the 7-mile pipeline project that we're talking about right now. To do what we're talking about would be another 8 miles to get it to that next star off to the left. And probably a larger diameter, and I understand Susan's system too, in that we can't go back to the Springville. We'd have to go all the way to Somas with it. So there's another 6 miles approximately. So we're actually looking at about a 14 mile as compared to the project at 7 miles at about 45 million. So you're probably
3 times.
Yeah.
That being the case, and obviously this is a mutually beneficial type of endeavor that all the districts are getting into. Would you see that the cost would be borne by the greater population of the affected districts then?
Well, certainly, Calleguas' entire service area would benefit, all the way from Simi Valley, Oxnard. So they certainly would bear Calleguas' portion of the cost. Your service area isn't quite as large a population, so all of that would just need to be worked out, looking at mutual benefits. What's the benefit to Casitas if you were able to take delivery of more water, like if Article 21 water were available? I think it's good to get this smaller project going, and you can see how that works for you. If Calleguas doesn't find more cost-effective ways to get large quantities of water, it's conceivable that whole project might be worth it to Calleguas. It just depends on how it compares to our other options.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Any other comments?
Susan, could I ask a question? I've heard this both ways, and I'm really confused. If we could pump it to the lake, is it possible to put treated water from a state project into our reservoir? Wouldn't that damage the fish? I've heard it. One person says we can do it, and the other one says we can't do it. So what is your opinion on that?
We have a lake. You would probably call it a pond. It's a 10,000 acre-foot lake bar, and we put treated water from the Jensen filtration plant into it, and we have a very healthy fish population, and we don't have algae problems.
So there's not a problem with putting treated water into Lake Casitas?
There isn't in our lake. So I don't know why there would be in
Are you,
Casitas.
your finished product of what we're getting from the Jensen's plant, do they finish out with the chloramine?
They do finish it with chloramine, but as soon as the chloramine gets into our lake, it's gone.
Yeah, it's gone.
It disappears in the lake.
So that's not a problem.
The disinfection is,
Okay, great.
it disappears.
Thank you. Yes, Danny?
How many people is,
Well, Mike,
how many people would this benefit? And I'm gonna put it in a different perspective. We had less than 3,000 users in Ojai. Dedicate $60 million for just 3,000 users. How many users, when I say users, I'm talking about parcels. So if we pro rata, and we're looking at hundreds of thousands of people, it appears it's a very, very, very minor cost to the rest of the county compared to what we already pay to preserve our water. So I'm confused as to where this big cost is, because we're already bearing that burden alone. So if somebody could put that in perspective, I would kind of like to see what that number is. Because my understanding is if we prorated it out to what we paid in Ojai, it's about 1.4 billion pro rata over the rest of the county at the rate that we paid to remove Golden State water. Okay? So I wish we could talk in numbers that are reasonable and achievable and have actually already been accomplished. So if someone could help the rest of us with that. I don't want to appear to be selfish, but we've already spent a ton of money. I'm not saying that it's not our purpose to say that we wouldn't have to bear the rest of the expenses. But when I hear it's going to be very costly, it just doesn't make sense with what's at stake in such a small amount of money to be making this huge obstacle. What's the last gallon of water going to be worth? And I think that's where we need to start with that. Thank you.
Well, that's one of the things we still have to work out and talk about and think about when it's going to be. Okay. Group, once more time, thank you very much for participating and coming.